Hey y'all, welcome to our second Empower Hour. This week we'll be talking about women in consulting, consulting tips, case interview tips, and just the consulting experience in general. Just to introduce ourselves, I'm Manjula Ndukuri. I'm one of the co-presidents of the Alumni Advisory Board this year. I'll be starting at BCG as an associate consultant, and I interned at Oliver Wyman as a management consulting intern.
Awesome. And my name is Hannah Fawcett, and I'm the other co-president of the Alumni Advisory Board. And I'm going to be joining PwC as a technology advisory consultant.
Yeah, we also wanted to give a shout out to Kara Simon, who is currently a business and technology senior analyst at Accenture, and she was one of our original presenters, and she gave us a lot of really great insight. So yeah, we really appreciated that.
Cool. So this is a pre-recorded Empower Hour, but originally when we did this Empower Hour, we had some poll questions and we wanted to keep them in because we thought that there were some cool conversations that sort of spurred from it. And so one of the first poll questions that we did was, what do you think consulting is? And some of our favorite responses that we got from students were problem solving, just solving complex problems in general, and also helping companies. And I really think that these are some great answers because so much of consulting is in fact just problem solving, working with different people, with different companies, and trying to just help businesses become more effective and more efficient in what they do. So yeah, great first question to sort of start off the discussion.
Yeah, after that, we asked what skills a consultant might use every day. And some of the things that came up were communication and analytical skills. To Hannah's point, you're communicating with a huge range of clients and peers and coworkers. So you have to have effective communication skills and then analytical skills to tackle like those different problems that you're thrown throughout your consulting career.
Great. And our third poll question was, why are you interested in consulting? And we really loved like the variety of answers that we were able to see through this question, but some of our favorite ones were just career growth and the variety of industries. And I think that really speaks to some of the best like benefits of consulting. Like so much of the time when you speak with recruiters, that's stuff that they'll bring up is just like, there's so much opportunity with whatever company that you go work with, and especially within the consulting space. And there's also just an opportunity to like constantly be learning. There's so many different industries that you can touch and so many different like types of problems that you can help solve. And so, yeah, I think those are some of the cool benefits and just things to be thinking about when entering into the consulting space. But with that being said, we can sort of transition into our first formal question that we had for the night. And so I can go ahead and read them out. So what does the consulting recruiting process look like?
Yeah, so I can definitely speak to that. The consulting recruiting process does start earlier than I think some people would expect. Companies start releasing this information about the recruiting starting maybe June, July, and a lot of times resume drops will occur anytime from July to early September. And so you really need to be on the lookout on company websites, on Macomb's websites, on your school's career portal website to figure out when you need to submit your first resume. So after this initial resume, once the school year starts, oftentimes consulting firms will have info sessions and coffee chats on campus. And these are a way to get to know more about the company, to be able to talk to consultants at the firm and just get your face known at the firm as well. And so these will occur, really the first few weeks of the school year. And soon after that, you will receive notice of a potential first round interview. And these first round interviews often take place on campus. You're usually interviewed by senior consultants, principals, people at kind of the mid-level management. And you'll do a case interview and you will do a behavioral interview, and it's pretty straightforward. And it's usually 1 to 2 of these. After that, if you do get past that stage, oftentimes companies will have a final round interview at their campus or whatever office, I guess, you are recruiting for. Say if you're recruiting for Dallas, you'll go to Dallas or Houston. Now that it's virtual, everyone gets to interview from the comfort of their own home, but oftentimes these interviews will be with partners or people at more senior management levels, and they're kind of the same as the first round. You're going to do a case interview, you'll do a behavioral, and that's really what the consulting recruiting process looks like. I think both parts of recruiting are pretty important. Actually, all three, networking, getting to know the company, working on your behavioral, being able to present yourself well, and then being comfortable with cases.
Great. The next question is, what made you decide to pursue a career in consulting? And I can sort of speak to this one. Yeah, so like coming into college and just like as I was going through the recruiting process for internships, I honestly like didn't expect myself to end up in the recruiting space of like consulting. Like I didn't think that consulting was going to be like where I would end up. But yeah, it just so happened that I got to talking with some companies and some people reached out for coffee chats. And yeah, I just like everyone that I talked to from like the consulting world was just like so easy and like real to like, and just so genuine whenever I had conversations with them. And so I think that's what drew me in initially, but what really like kept me in the consulting space was just I felt like whenever I was doing work, whether that was like client-based work or even just like internal work with like colleagues for just like internal stuff within the company, I always felt like I was constantly learning something, and that really like excited me. I think that not to say that like other careers you can't learn things, like I think you'll always be learning wherever you're placed, but I think that like consulting is one space in particular where you're always like challenged to learn new things and be around people who are also really driven to just learn new things and solve problems as well. And so because of that, I think that it was just a really exciting and fun space to start off my career in. And yeah, so I think that's what sort of brought me into consulting. All right, next question. How can you get involved with consulting as a non-business major?
Yeah, so I can definitely speak to this. I think as time goes on, it's getting easier and easier just because there are more non-business majors in the consulting field. So there's oftentimes people that are older than you in your major that you are able to reach out to and get to know more about consulting from. But one big thing is to definitely be more proactive about learning about the companies, because oftentimes, you know, the engineering career services won't necessarily give you the info sessions for Accenture, PwC, Big Three, whatever it might be. You will need to go and find out about those yourself. But past that, I think something that's really helpful about learning more about consulting, as well as being more involved in the consulting side of things on campus, is participating in case competitions. This doesn't necessarily have to be only at Macombs. A lot of schools do host their own case competitions, and these introduce you not only to consultants that are judges, but also to the consulting thought process. Additionally, being involved in consulting orgs on campus. Things at UT include Consult Your Community, Texas Consulting, anything along those lines really gets you into a peer group that is also interested in consulting. And so it's easier to case prep, to learn more about companies with these peers, get to know more about the field in general. But I really do think for me, the best way to get more involved with consulting and kind of get my foot in the door as a non-business major was reaching out to people at the companies that I was recruiting with that were engineering majors, and kind of getting their perspective on things and figuring out how they were able to prep for a career in consulting and learning from them, and then kind of using that to guide my path at UT. For example, I was a part of the Genesis program, and so this really gave me a skill set that involved making business decisions, and that involved being knowledgeable about the market, things of that sort that I wouldn't have otherwise known as a chemical engineering major. And I think that's what really helped me get more involved with consulting in general. So I think even if you are not a business major, finding things on campus that might help you gain that skill set is one of the most important things you can do.
Great. The next question is, what does a day in the life of a virtual consultant look like? And I can go ahead and answer this one. And I think that one of the first and most important things that I should emphasize is that, like, as a consultant, like, things are changing all the time. And I feel like there is no like single day that looks exactly the same. But with that being said, like, in general, I think a virtual day does have a couple of like key things that sort of are like recurring things that you'll probably see throughout a normal day. But one of the things that like my team likes to do is at the beginning of the day, we'll just sort of have like a team meeting where it will sometimes be like daily, sometimes it'll be like once a week, where just like as a whole team, we come together and sort of just like have a touch point and just sort of share about like where we are as a team and like how we're doing in terms of just various deliverables that we might have for the week. And so this is like a great opportunity for us to sort of like get to know the team better, because I think team dynamic is something that's really important in the consulting space, because just so much of like what you do is just based on being able to like solve problems with other people who are also on the same engagement as you. And then after that, hopefully you'll have some time to just like work on your own projects for the day, that your own assignments for the day. And one of the things I really like about consulting is I think you really get the opportunity to sort of like control your own schedule, control, you know, how many different like projects you have time to take on, and also like when you can take on meetings. And I think that like because of that flexibility, it like really gives you a cool opportunity to really like flex your time management skills, and also just like develop just your skills as being able to like, I guess, manage different schedules at the same time as like, while also like learning how to like prioritize things that are important to you. And so like if there might be like certain things outside of work that you really want to make sure you're making time for, knowing how to like structure your day so that you can make times for those things is something that is really important. And then in general, another thing that I think is really important during like a virtual day is just knowing how to, I guess, say no to work and like actually put work aside once you're done for the day. I think that like, especially in the virtual space, it's so easy for you to just like constantly be working. And so learning to set boundaries is something that I think is also really important, and especially more important now that we're in a virtual space. And so sometimes that might look like actually just like turning off your computer for the day. Sometimes it might be more subtle things like just taking a walk and, you know, taking a break from just being in front of a screen all day. But yeah, different things, different people do different things every day to just sort of take a break. And that's totally cool too. But yeah, with that being said, again, the virtual day like looks different every day. And there's not really a whole bunch of like specific structure, but there are a couple of key elements that you see throughout the day in the life of a consultant.
Yeah, so next we just wanted to give a quick overview of what a case approach would look like when you're presented with a case question. There's four really main steps. The first one being clarifying the objective, making sure you're answering the question that you're supposed to be answering. The second one is developing a framework. And so a framework is essentially how you structure your answer. What are the different things you would need to look at to be able to answer this question effectively? The third thing is going to be, you know, the bulk of the case where you're actually doing the grunt work to answer this question. So this will be math, it'll be looking at graphs and tables and interpreting them, it'll be, you know, ideating on different things that the case may want you to answer. And this is where a lot of your, this is where you can really bring your uniqueness out as well. It's where you can take the case and run with it and make it your own and set yourself apart, especially during an interview. And then finally is the conclusion and next steps. And if you want to go to the next slide, when you're looking at a conclusion, there is a framework that I have found really helpful that helps me structure it and make sure I'm hitting everything during my case. And so the first thing I'll do is repeat the question from the beginning of the case and restate what I was trying to answer in the first place. I'll upfront give my recommendation so that I'm answering the question. I'm not just talking on and on. Third, I'll back up this recommendation that I've given with case data. This is really important, and this is where being organized during your case comes in. You want to make sure that you have all your answers that you found in order so you can refer back to them when you're giving your conclusion. Fourth and fifth, these are things that I think set a candidate apart, especially in case interviews. The fourth step will be risks and next steps. And so this is anything that they might want to consider when answering the question. You know, obviously in a perfect world, the recommendation would always work, but when you're looking at real world, there's always going to be things you want to consider. And this is what the fourth step is. It really shows that you are thinking critically about what answer you have given. And then fifth, you want to recap and just give your recommendation again. So that is what the interviewer holds as you leave the interview room. But that's like the basic overview of a case interview. Obviously, it's a little more intricate than that in real life, but there are a lot of resources online. If you just do a quick search, a lot of things will come up that can help you kind of figure out what your own personal case approach is.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us for this Empower Hour. And again, these are usually occurring once a month, the last Monday of every month for an hour. But this was a sort of like re-recorded session. But yeah, thanks for joining us, and I hope you learned something.